Hello guys, today we're going to see 5 fastest and most powerful laptops for graphic designers and gamers. So let's start. In the 5th position we have Asus ROG Zephyrus Duo SE GX 551. So let's start with spec. It has latest AMD Ryzen 9 5900HX processor with 8-core 16-thread and 20 MB cache with base clock 3.3 GHz and max boost clock 4.5 GHz. In graphics section it has NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3080 with 16GB GDDR6 RAM with ROG boost up to 1645 MHz. In display section it has 15.6-inch 4K Ultra HD 16:9 anti-glare display with 120Hz refresh rate with 3 millisecond response time and 132.7% sRGB with 100% Adobe Color supported and with a 3840x1100 ScreenPad Plus secondary display. In memory section it has 16GB DDR4 on-board memory and maximum capacity up to 48GB. In storage section it has two 1TB Samsung PCIe 3.0 NVMe SSD. Here is the port spec. Here is the network spec. Here is the battery spec. Full spec and description. In the 4th position we have Acer Predator Triton 700, a slim and powerful laptop for gamers and creatives. In the processor section it has Intel Core i7, 7th Gen 7700HQ with 4-core, 8-thread 6MB cache with base clock speed 2.8 GHz and max clock speed 3.8 GHz. In the graphics section it has NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1080 with up to 8GB of GDDR5X, dedicated graphics memory. In the memory section it has 16GB DDR4 RAM and expandable up to 32GB. In the display section it has 15.6-inch Full HD 120Hz LCD display with NVIDIA G-Sync technology. In the storage section it has 1TB M.2 SSD. Here is the port spec. Here is the network spec. Here is the battery spec. Full spec and description. In the 3rd position we have MacBook Pro 2021. In the processor section MacBook Pro 2021 has its own Apple M1 Pro chip with 10-core CPU and 16-core integrated GPU with 16-core neural engine. In the memory section MacBook Pro 2021 has 16GB unified memory configurable up to 64GB. In the display section MacBook Pro 2021 has 16.2-inch diagonal Liquid Retina XDR display with ProMotion technology for adaptive refresh rates up to 120Hz. In the storage section MacBook Pro 2021 has 1TB SSD configurable up to 8TB. Here is the port spec. Here is the network spec. Full spec and description. In the second position we have ASUS ProArt StudioBook 1, the best, powerful laptop for graphic designers. In the processor section, ASUS ProArt StudioBook 1 have Intel Core i9, 9th Gen 9980HK 8-core 16-thread, 16 MB cache, with base clock 2.4 GHz, max boost clock 5 GHz. In the graphics section, ASUS ProArt StudioBook 1 has NVIDIA Quadro RTX 6000 with dedicated 24GB GDDR6 memory. In the display section, ASUS ProArt StudioBook 1 has a 15.6-inch 4K IPS LCD panel with 100% Adobe Color Gamma out and 84% screen-to-body ratio. In the memory section, ASUS ProArt StudioBook 1 has 64GB DDR4 on-board memory, max up to 64GB. In the storage section, ASUS ProArt StudioBook 1 has 1TB M.2 PCIe 3.0 SSD. Here is the port spec. Here is the network spec. Here is the battery spec. Full spec and description. In first position, we have ASUS ROG Zephyrus S17GX701, most powerful laptop overall. In processor section, the ASUS ROG Zephyrus S17GX701 has Intel Core i7 10th Gen 10875H with 16 MB cache, 8-core 16 threads, with base clock speed 2.3 GHz and max clock speed 5.1 GHz. In graphics section, the ASUS ROG Zephyrus S17GX701 has NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2060 with 6GB GDDR6 memory. In display section, the ASUS ROG Zephyrus S17GX701 has a 300Hz 17.3-inch Full HD anti-glare display with 100% sRGB and 75.35% Adobe Gamma out supported with NVIDIA G-Sync. In memory section, it has 16GB 3200 MHz DDR4 on-board memory, max capacity 32GB. In storage section, ASUS ROG Zephyrus S17GX701 has 1TB M.2 NVMe PCIe 3.0 SSD. Here is the port spec. Here is the network spec. Here is the battery spec. Full spec and description. So guys, subscribe the channel for daily info related videos.